some French consider him a hero. Others say he's a criminal people smuggler. Cédric Herrou is a farmer in the Roya Valley in southern France on the border to Italy. Locals here often help refugees cross into France or offer them safe shelter. Now Herrou is standing trial for providing that aid. He says it's the government's failed refugee policies that are at fault. How will the farmer stand up to the courts and politicians? Countries across Europe are trying to seal borders. But 37-year-old Cédric Herrou is doing the opposite. Here on his farm in France, he welcomes new refugees every week. Herrou says the first ones came on foot through the railway tunnel behind his land.
These people will never forget how well they were received here. Never. It's different in big cities like Paris. They're not allowed to pitch tents there because it doesn't fit the city's image. They're treated like animals. Here we treat them like individuals, and I'm proud of that.
20-year-old Hassan from Chad came here a week ago. He slipped past police checks and special military units, crossing over the mountainous border to the French village Breil-sur-Roya at night.
Other refugees who returned to Italy told me about this place, and word got around from people who knew him. I asked someone for a recommendation, and I followed his advice. Cédric is someone who helps us.
Herrou has even taken refugees across the border from Italy personally, without accepting money, of course. He's been arrested several times. Now the regional administration has charged him with assisting illegal entry. He faces up to 5 years in prison.
Are you hungry?
Yes, I am.
Me too. Let's cook something.
15 refugees are currently living on his farm, from Sudan, Eritrea and Ivory Coast. They first traveled to Libya. For about 500 euros, people smugglers took them across the Mediterranean to Italy. The nighttime march to France at below freezing temperatures has left its traces. Volunteer helpers from the Roya Valley, such as nurse Florence Pernet, support the refugees as well as they can, always at risk of prosecution.
I'm not afraid. I don't have the impression I'm doing anything wrong. But I do worry about where this will lead in the long term if we don't get any help. Because at any given moment, things could get complicated with all the people who come through here. I hope our strength holds out.
Many of the locals along the Roya River think the same, even though the regional governments have been conservative for ages. The authorities firmly refuse to open an official reception center, and they decline an interview. Herrou is selling his organic produce at the weekly market. And he's talking to the police again, this time about some teenage refugees. In France, the state can't expel minors and must care for them. But so far, it's done nothing.
Can't we get things moving? There are still 15 refugees with friends up there. I registered 3 children 2 weeks ago.
Cédric Herrou doesn't exactly seem like a defendant awaiting trial the next day.
The authorities only follow the official procedure if we're active. If the police pick up teenagers on the street and we're not around, they just deport them back to Italy, although that's illegal.
For Herrou, every rescued refugee is a success. But his father says not everyone in the village agrees.
Many don't like it. They've forgotten where they themselves came from. During the last war, Italians sought refuge in France. And they're often the ones who are most afraid of migrants now.
That fear grows with every terrorist attack in France. But the Roya Valley residents, who are helping the refugees, want to counter that. Herrou and many supporters drive
I hope I can use the trial to publicize our cause. It's the only time when I can hope that people will listen to why I'm doing all this. I want to call attention at long last to the problems in our region. I want to show that people here are suffering and that borders can kill or wound people, psychologically and physically.
Almost as soon as Herrou has left the village, the police stop the small convoy. The officers say it's a routine check. The helpers call it an attempt at intimidation. After about an hour, Herrou reaches Nice. There are still memorials along its promenade, commemorating the 85 victims of last summer's attack.
There are many terrorists among the immigrants. They should just stay at home. Our border needs better protection. They don't respect our rules.
The solution is to have regulation in their own countries. Definitely not here. That just creates new problems.
Herrou's supporters in front of the court in Nice see it differently. His brother is among them.
The far-right Front National is taking advantage of the fear created by the attacks to gain votes. We have presidential elections in 5 months. They're fishing for voters everywhere you look. They hope that not letting black people in will win them votes. But they do it under the pretext of keeping out terrorists.
La vallée, de la Roya, la 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 la, dans la vallée, j'ai cru entendre Cédric Herrou.
But Cédric Herrou doesn't see himself as a hero. He says he's just helping people who would cross the border anyway.
If you want to stem the influx of refugees, you have to solve the problems in their home countries. Walls don't stop anyone. These people are fleeing dictatorships and war. We have to confront and understand their problems. Spreading fear and stigmatizing people will not solve the problems. You have to discuss the problems with them to understand them.
We're back in the Roya Valley with Giselle and Jean-Pierre Cotalorda. Like Herrou, they are members of the Roya Citoyenne, the Citizens of Roya, an association dedicated to aiding refugees. Today they are going to bring food to refugees on the Italian side of the border. 150 bags of it, illegally, as Cotalorda, a retired policeman, tells us.
It's a municipal law, but the law itself is illegal. How can you forbid us to feed people? If we were feeding cats or dogs, no one would say a thing.
In Nice, the court hearing begins. The judges also face a dilemma. In Herrou's case, there's only one law, which actually applies only to professional people smugglers. The hearing lasts for several hours. Cameras aren't allowed inside. In the meantime, the Cotalordas have arrived in Italy. In just under 20 minutes, all the bags are gone. It's gone slightly too quickly for Giselle.
Just one. One bag per person. Otherwise, we won't come again.
One for one person.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Voilà,
that's not right.
My friend is sleeping in the home.
Okay.
Yes, I'm going to my friend, me. Yes.
Calls for solidarity outside the court in Nice. At least the state prosecutor recognizes Herrou's good intentions and asks for just 8-month probation instead of 5 years imprisonment. But Herrou wants an acquittal when the verdict is announced in 4 weeks.
I found the state prosecutor very aggressive and uninformed about the situation we're actually dealing with. I hope it's become clear to him that the authorities in our region also make mistakes.
The Cotaloras are on their way back to France. They too often take people in, at home in the valley.
I really hope with all my heart that we'll see these people again. Because with this group, something very intense happened. And when they left us, everyone cried. They did, and we did.
The valley dwellers see providing aid as perfectly normal, even under tough conditions. Jean-Pierre says that's just the difference between the town and the mountains.
We're at home everywhere here. In the Roya Valley, there's no France or Italy. It's our home. It's the Roya.
Back in Breil, 3 teenagers are just coming out of one of the tunnels from Italy. They're on the lookout for the police. One attempt to cross has already failed. Herrou wants to spare people scenes like this. He hopes the court will decide in his and the refugees' favor.
The people who have come here are good people. They're a positive factor for our society. These kids have ambitions, plans and hopes, and a desire to accomplish something. I think it's great for Europe that there's such a force.
A few days later, the police arrest 4 more Roya Citoyen members. They had refugees in their car. But no one in the valley is giving up. As Cédric Herrou says, along the Roya, you can't just look away.